Hello, dear friends. I'm Roland homeopath in Royston on Vancouver Island. And today I have a topic that's a little bit complex, so please hang in with me. It's about cancer and beyond. And what I mean with beyond, let's think about what's behind it. I've been a medical doctor and homeopath now for 45 years, and almost every day of these 45 years, I dealt in one way or the other with cancer, and I know many of you also have. Cancer is something so common. One third of everybody die from cancer. So it's a huge topic that affects us all. And either you have experienced it yourself or experienced it with friends and family. It touches everybody. Just that alone tells us that this is more than just an individual problem. If it would be just an individual problem, it could be anything. There's so many things that can, so many diseases and trouble in the body. Yeah, but cancer is something pretty specific. Now, it does have an individual aspect. Yeah, and it has an aspect, of course it hits us as an individual, and we got to deal with that just the way it hits us in whichever way it does. Yeah, and we will talk a little bit about that. So that is important, but still at the same time it's much more than just my cancer or your cancer or somebody else's cancer. It's our cancer. And what I mean with that, it's there's a collective aspect to it. The individual aspect, just to say a word about that, in my experience, what I gleaned in these 45 years, and I want to put a few things here today. I want to offer you a few things of what I think I understood, and I do not want to claim that this is the plain truth. Please take it in, hear it, and take it to your heart. Your heart will know and feel what's true and what's not true. And it would be great if you would give me feedback. So let's start with the individual aspect. I think the individual aspect, the message for me as an individual is more about the location of the cancer than the fact that it's cancer. So where in my body does it sit? Like a few days ago, I met a woman who was diagnosed with cancer in her female organs just lately. And one of the first things she said is, I think it has to do with my femininity, with a wounded sense of being a woman. And I thought this is really great. And I think this is very, very true. You know, in man, the most common cancer is prostate cancer. And yes, of course, it has to do with our masculinity at this time. So this is important that we deal with that. On the individual level, this is mainly an emotional um, thing that we need, an emotional challenge that we need to integrate, to look at. What I've seen is life is really gentle and wise. There's a great intelligence. Very often when we deal with emotions, we experience a trauma that means a time when emotions are overwhelming and I don't have the support that I would need in order to deal with them. Then it leaves scars in our body, in our nervous system, and the body remembers that. This is trauma. And it's, and very often it's unintegrated emotions that create on the long run, in years or decades, a physical disease. Because what we cannot deal with on the emotional level, somehow it affects our body. Just think about anger. Yeah, if anger is suppressed, of course it goes in the body and we might get stomach cramps or whatever. If anger is constantly just constantly blow up, it also affects our body. One anger episode and 24 hours, our immune system functions in a lower rate. These are things we know. Yeah? So it's not acting it out and it's not suppressing it. It's integrating it. And especially specifically with anger, we often don't even know how that might look like. Because somebody with an integrated anger, an adult with an integrated anger, I asked this question, a mentor of mine, well, how does that look like? And she said, an integrated anger in an adult is a no, where you feel everything of that person stands behind this no, and it is what it means. No, here's my boundary. Not more needed than that. And everything else is a little bit immature, childlike ways of dealing with anger or leftovers of traumatic experiences that then become a pattern that we continuously relive. Now, the interesting thing is that very often, I'm not sure if it's always, but very often, the disease creates the emotions whose suppression created the disease. That's interesting. So it's like life is really gentle. It gives us a second chance. Okay, you didn't deal with that. Now you get the consequence is a certain disease, a certain physical problem. And that problem, of course, hits us again on the emotional level, and we have certain emotions. What are the emotions in cancer? It's pretty standard. It's fear and aggression, which makes me think that an unintegrated fear and an unintegrated aggression were at the cause, at the roots of cancer, the emotional roots of cancer. When we look at the fear is very often when we hear a diagnosis or get a diagnosis, you have cancer, very often there's fear, and often it's a fear of dying. It's again something that our whole culture is affected of that. I've been living for some years with a native tribe here in Canada, and in the native world, there's an initiation into death. And originally, when it still was practiced, it was somewhere after puberty and 20 years of age. And when well, one of the women who taught me, an old woman, she said, Roland, dig your grave. And then she had me go through this whole dying process and so on. And her reasoning was, you cannot live unless you're okay with dying. You have to be every day of your life aware this life is temporary. And that's why it's so, so, so precious. And in our culture, we often deal with that or face it, at least our fear of dying, and kind of late when they have a diagnosis that makes a question mark behind living. But it's better than nothing that we deal then, but it's the first thing we need to deal with, this fear. The second, the aggression. Very often we usually, there might be something that we are upset about the diagnosis and ask why me, but mainly we delegate that aggression to the medical system, and they do the war on cancer with knives, and I can say that as an old surgeon, with knives and radiation and toxins and so on. Yeah, so pure aggression towards the cancer. This thing has to go, and it's not, oh, I created something, my body created something. What does the body express that I could not express? And when you bring that together with that in trauma, after a trauma, very often there is certain areas in our in a landscape that turned blank, that we don't know. It's the areas to which we are connected through emotions. Certain emotions, for example, we shut them down. That happens, for example, in anger. Again, I use that as an example. When in a trauma situation can be, we meet anger, then we would fight whatever's happening, or we would need to run away, then we would run. But we can't, when we can't do any of that, are forced to stay in it, then it's just too much to feel all this fear and anger, and we shut it down. That these things go sooner or later, are very likely to go in the body, and the body carries it. So these are stored somewhere or represented also in the body. There's an emotional area in our emotional world, in our emotional body that is blank, that is wounded, and it represents also a part of our body where the communication is not functioning because we don't feel something anymore. We don't feel a certain organ. We don't feel maybe our prostate because it's wounded or our masculinity is wounded. And then there's no connection. When there's no connection, and there's, for example, Zach Bush is somebody that talks about that beautifully. Says the cancer cell is the most scared cell of our body because the cancer does not receive communication anymore. And what the cancer cell communicates is not being received. There's not coming a feedback. And then they get, like you and like me, like many of us, when we are scared, we get primitive and aggressive. And that's exactly what a cancer cell does. Oh, I'm alone, I'm scared, now I have to fight and get bigger. And that's what a cancer cell does. So the this fear behind cancer is again a collective thing. There's something about cancer. We live as a we live in a cancer society. 30 years ago, I was living near Calgary for a while, some years, and I remember when I was standing in the outskirts of Calgary hitchhiking, and when I fly into Calgary today and I see where I used to stand, and it was the outskirts of Calgary, there's one suburb after the other. You know, it's like many of our cities, they grow like cancer and they have their metastases around them. And it's so striking, this image, at least for me as a doctor. It's amazing. So we all do that. And why is it? There is a deep fear that I'm not enough, that I don't have enough, that I'm not good enough, and that I need more. We all agree that growth is the one thing that we all need. We need more production, we need more money, we need more productivity. We get up in the morning, look in the mirror. The first thing is, I don't look good enough, so I need to look better and have more beauty. I go to school, I don't learn or I don't know enough, so I need to know more. I go to work, I'm not productive enough, so I need to produce more. I go home, I'm tired or I didn't have sleep enough, so I need more. Then I don't have tools enough and things enough, and. It's an endless thing every day of not enough. And very often it starts in childhood when we're told you should be different and you're not enough the way you are. This is a deep, deep wound that we all do to each other, to ourselves, and to our children. And the consequence is I need more, I need more, I need more, I need growth, I need to be bigger, I need to be more and have more. Now, when we collectively as a society, millions and millions of us live like that and send out this energy, there's no way that it would not come back to us. We live like a cancer on this earth. We will not be, for karmic reasons, in our next time grandmother Earth. No, it's coming back now to us as cancer. So each one or many of us have the experience what it is to have a cancer growing in you or on you. And it gives us a second chance to revisit these fears and deal with them where they belong, not acting them out, but dealing with them like holding them as fears. And as fears, we need communication and we need other people that help us to deal with that. We need a certain support. But what goes around comes around. Yeah? When we all agree we need more and we need growth, it will come back to us and our bodies will listen to that and will represent it. And we have an example what it means, a growth that's out of alignment with the mother, with a bigger organism, does not communicate, but in the end kills it very often. So in that way, people that have cancer, it's not just an individual thing. They carry something for all of us, and we should respect them very, very highly because they suffer in their body, they carry in their body the consequences of something we all believe in. And as such, we really have to respect them highly. The balance and imbalance that we create all together. Now, this is the reason why the treatment of cancer is so difficult. Because on one hand, we treat it, no matter with which methods, yeah, in which modality of healing, in all modality is difficult. Why? Because at the same time, proactively, we constantly create it. And so there will be a time when we can heal cancer, but not before we collectively stop thinking that we constantly need more. Yeah, the healing of that is really the first thing is, can I be enough? Healing always starts with myself. When I see something in the world, it's not that I blame the world and whoever. I hear that from the first thing. Where am I for myself not enough? Where do I give myself the message you're not good enough? And then ask what's behind that? Why do I say that? Explore that. And whatever you find, there's an emotional quality, there's something where you once have been told that or where you had an experience that was very painful, that made you believe that. And to unwrap that, open it up, bring it into emotion flow and into communication with somebody that knows how to deal with trauma with that's been stored in our body and how to integrate that, and then we can deal with it and it becomes a part of um, yeah, it disappears as trauma, but it becomes it gives us energy for a higher future. There's one aspect more that I want to mention. There's also a spiritual aspect. Years ago in Germany, there was a man called Witold Allen, somebody I learned a lot from and I respect highly. He made a homeopathic remedy out of a little piece of cancer. And after doing that, what he found, he said, this is a spiritual disease. It is a love of the substance that wants to reach spirit and can. It's the love and the desire of spirit that wants to reach the substance, matter, and it's not working. It's fascinating. Let me let me unpack that a little bit. When you see in the forest or in a park or a tree that has these burls on the side, that's a cancer in tree. All these tree cancer, these burls, when you talk with arborists, with people that understand trees, they say this started with an interruption, with a wound. Once there was a wound that did not heal properly. Trees have a constant flow from the roots up to the branches and to the leaves, and from the leaves down to the roots. So there's a constant flow in both directions. When that is interrupted, that means here there's a flow from above that gets stuck, there's a flow from below that gets stuck, and they create this weird scar tissue that then becomes like a cancer. And in a way, this is exactly how it is when you look at it from a spiritual side. There is our body. Our body is a part of Earth. Earth wants to reach spirit, wants to reach the divine. And there's a yearning. And this is the energetic flow and yearning towards the above, and this opening up towards the above. And there's a yearning from spirit, from the divine, be, to come into matter, so that finally matter is enlightened, and the light and divine really matters. Yeah. So that the both marry, and this marriage happens in us, in each one of us, in the same way as it happens in every tree. Yeah? They are deeply grounded in the matter, in the soil, in the physical, here and now, and they reach up to the light to receive the light of a higher blessing, a future from the divine. And when we do that, that can be interrupted in us. It can be interrupted in several ways. One is that we do religious ceremonies without having a connection to the above. The other way is that we sit in meditation, have a wonderful connection to the above, but don't get it in our body, don't get it on the ground, and don't make it physical. Both ways. Here there's the love of spirit for the matter, and they want to reach it out, and they can't. And there's the love of matter towards spirit, and they can't. And then this happens like in the burl of the tree. It's there's a problem. There's a chaotic growth around that. And another way that this is interrupted is the denial that there is a higher meaning in life, that there is a spiritual meaning of life at all, which also is a lot. This also prevents that the two can come together. And then this is exactly what's happening. Yeah, so why do I talk about that? For me, it's really important because every time it's painful to be confronted with cancer, to see cancer, or even to experience it. And of course, I cannot stop thinking about, hey, what does it want to teach me? What are we supposed to learn from that? Because every disease is a suffering, but it also has a potential. What's the potential in cancer when we get it? Yeah? And from then also, yeah, what might have gone wrong to create that? These are some of the things that I see. And like I said in the beginning, I don't want to say this is the truth, but this is what I see. And please, I would be so happy if you communicate with me and let me know how that lands in you when you listen to that, what resonates in you when you hear me talk about that. It's also very practical because it gives us a little bit, besides going to the medical system and say, okay, here, do with me whatever you want. Yeah, it gives a little bit a hand on what is mine to do. Mine when I have cancer, and we all do. Yeah, if we are diagnosed or not, we all are sick and needing more and not being enough. So what is ours to do? One thing is to go back to where did that conviction start, that I'm not enough, that I don't have enough, that I need more, and integrate that. It's also to see our interwovenness with each other. It's not my personal thing, yeah. It's we create it, and then the energy comes back and hits just some of us with cancer. It's not their personal problem and their personal fault that they have that. Like I said, they do it for all of them. So we see this interwovenness, and we need also this interwovenness to get over cancer. It's very hard to get over or to overcome cancer anyway. The, the solution is definitely in this, in community, in relying on each other, sharing each other, holding each other, being there for each other. This is something, this, the fear isolates us and we think, I have to do it all alone. Yeah. But the healing is not I do it alone. The healing is I reach out and allow others to help me. And I call for help. I call in resources and help. And the last thing is, yes, it also helps me to look a little bit at my spiritual practice. How do I practice spirituality? How important do I do it at all? And how is it connected? Is it just a form of rituals without that I really have a personal connection to a higher level, to the divine? Or do I sit in meditation and without practicing it really here on the ground and making it a chance of life to embody the light, or you will find enough places where the spirit aspect of life plays just a small role, if at all. And this is all areas where we can be active. And I'm sure when we do that together, and a lot of us, because we need to do it together, we created that together and we need to get out of that together and overcome it together. That's when we all do the little thing that we can do, something big will happen. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your patience in that. See you next time. Bye.